She didn't expect to be noticed. Dressed in a modest blue dress and simple sandals, Maria quietly entered the glamorous birthday party, clutching a small gift she had wrapped herself. The glittering lights, designer gowns, and picture-perfect guests made her feel like she had walked into another world. She wasn't used to such grand events. She wasn't the kind to draw attention. In fact, that's what she liked about herself, being real, grounded, and unnoticed. But that night, everything changed. As people chatted over champagne and music played in the background, Maria tried to find a quiet corner. She smiled politely when spoken to, nodded in conversations she wasn't really part of, and waited for the cake cutting so she could slip away unnoticed. But the whispers started almost immediately. Little glances, judging eyes, laughter that stopped when she looked up. It was as if her presence disrupted the polished image everyone else had curated. To them, she didn't belong. And within an hour, the unthinkable happened. A woman in heels so tall they echoed across the floor approached her with a look of disdain. "I think you're at the wrong place," she said loud enough for others to hear. The room fell silent. Someone chuckled. Maria blinked, not understanding. "This is a private party. We don't usually invite people who don't match the vibe," the woman continued, making a sweeping gesture from Maria's head to toe. The host stood by and said nothing. And just like that, Maria was asked to leave, not for something she said or did, but for simply being herself. Plain, simple, unfitting, embarrassed and humiliated, she turned to go. Eyes followed her, some pitiful, most amused. But just as she reached the door, someone else stood up. A guest who had been watching everything unfold. Someone no one expected to speak. And what he said next would not only silence the room but completely shift the energy of the night. The man who stood up wasn't the kind to draw attention either. He wasn't dressed in flashy clothes or surrounded by a crowd, but there was something about him calm, confident, grounded. His name was Daniel, and he had been sitting quietly near the back, sipping his drink and watching the night unfold. With growing discomfort, he had noticed Maria the moment she walked in, not because of how she looked, but because she seemed genuine in a room full of masks. Daniel cleared his throat, loud enough to make everyone pause. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady, though there was a quiet edge to it. "But I think you all owe this woman an apology." The laughter that had filled the room moments before vanished into stunned silence. Maria froze near the door, unsure whether to stay or go. The woman who had called her out raised an eyebrow. "And who exactly are you to say that?" Daniel didn't respond immediately. He looked around the room, making eye contact with a few guests who now looked uneasy, as if they were questioning whether they had gone too far. "I'm someone who still believes character matters more than appearance," he said. "And if this party is only about looks, then maybe I'm in the wrong place too." People shifted uncomfortably. Maria turned slowly, her eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. She didn't know this man, had never seen him before. So why was he defending her? The host of the party, a well-known event planner named Olivia, stepped forward, trying to smooth things over. "Let's not make this bigger than it is," she said, forcing a smile. "It's just, this night was meant to have a certain theme, a certain feel." "No offense meant." Daniel didn't smile. "It's already big," he replied. "You just made someone feel like they weren't good enough for being exactly who they are. That's more than offense, it's cruelty." Whispers started again, but they were different now, more uncertain, more curious. Who was Daniel? And why did he seem to care so much? Maria stood frozen, heart pounding, caught between leaving and staying. Whatever was happening, the entire tone of the night had shifted, and it was far from over. Maria didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the ribbon of the small gift in her hands, its wrapping now slightly crumpled. She looked at Daniel, still unsure what to make of him, why someone like him, who clearly belonged in this crowd, would speak out for someone like her. Around them, the whispers continued, louder now. Some were defending the party's aesthetic, others quietly agreeing with Daniel. But no one was saying anything to Maria directly. That stung more than anything. Daniel's words had created a crack in the perfect surface of the party. Now, people weren't just judging Maria, they were questioning themselves. A woman near the drink table, Serena, whispered to a friend, "I mean, she does look out of place." "But still, that was harsh," her friend replied. "Yeah, but who decides what fits? We just follow what Olivia says." And that was the unspoken truth of it all. Olivia, the host, the planner, the influencer everyone secretly feared and admired, had built her reputation on curating perfect moments. Her parties weren't just social events, they were branding tools. Everything was staged, everything filtered. Maria's presence hadn't just disrupted the visual, it had threatened the illusion. Meanwhile, Daniel glanced over at Olivia, who was now trying to laugh it off with a few guests, though her smile looked strained. He knew this world well. He had been to enough parties to know that kindness wasn't often valued in rooms like these. But tonight, something in him snapped. He couldn't watch someone be humiliated just because she wasn't polished like the rest. He wasn't trying to be a hero, but he also wasn't going to stay silent. Maria, still unsure what to do, finally took a step forward. But before she could speak, someone else stood up. A man near the DJ booth. Mark raised his voice. "This isn't the first time someone's been treated like this here. Let's not pretend it is." His words cut through the noise, catching Olivia off guard. She turned sharply, her polished mask beginning to slip. Now the room was truly divided. Lines were being drawn not just about Maria, but about how people like Olivia controlled these spaces, and how easily everyone went along with it. And right in the middle of it all, Maria stood, unsure whether she was still the outsider or the beginning of a reckoning. The air in the room had shifted completely. What was once a flawless, filtered evening had now turned into something unpredictable. Olivia's face tightened as more guests began murmuring, not in admiration, but in uncertainty. Her control over the room was slipping, and she knew it. She turned toward Mark, her voice icy. "If you have a problem with how I run my events, maybe don't come next time." But her words didn't land with the same weight they used to. Mark didn't back down. Daniel remained silent, watching the unfolding tension with a calm that only added to Olivia's frustration. Maria, meanwhile, stood rooted to the floor. Part of her wanted to disappear, to walk out and pretend this night had never happened. But another part, one that had always been quiet, was starting to wake up. Behind her, guests were no longer whispering. They were speaking openly now. "Honestly, I've always felt judged here," one woman said. "Like if you're not dressed a certain way or wearing the right shoes, you don't count." A man nearby added, "Yeah, it's like we all come here pretending." And tonight, someone didn't pretend, and look what happened. Maria turned, looking at the room differently now. For the first time, she saw it not as a glamorous dream she didn't belong in, but as a place where so many were silently playing roles they were tired of. The attention had turned toward her, but it no longer felt like mockery. It felt like something else, expectation. Then Olivia's voice cut through again, sharper now. "Let's not forget, this is my event, and I won't let one person's discomfort ruin it for everyone else." A pause. Maria opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Daniel stepped forward again. His voice was firm. "It's already ruined, not by Maria, but by how she was treated. And people are noticing." Olivia, for a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. People were watching her, waiting to see if she would leave quietly again, or finally speak up. Just as Maria looked like she might finally say something, a sudden voice cut through the tension, one no one expected. "Actually, Maria was invited." Everyone turned toward the entrance. A woman in a long emerald green dress stepped inside, her presence elegant but commanding. Her name was Ava, a fashion editor and longtime friend of Olivia's, someone whose opinion often carried weight in the city's social circles. She walked with intention, pausing beside Maria and gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Olivia's expression faltered for the first time. "Ava, I didn't know you knew her." Ava tilted her head. You didn't ask. Her voice was calm but laced with disappointment. Maria is my cousin. She's new to the city, and I told her this party would be a good place to meet people. Clearly, I misjudged the environment. A hush fell across the room. Guests who had joined in the judgment earlier now avoided eye contact. Olivia's carefully constructed narrative, the idea that Maria had somehow snuck into a place where she didn't belong, was unraveling in real time. And worse, someone with influence was pulling the thread. Maria looked up at Ava, stunned. She hadn't seen her cousin in over a year. She had no idea Ava would even show up, let alone speak up. But she had. And it changed everything. Olivia's tone turned defensive. If I had known, but you didn't care to find out, Ava said firmly. You saw someone you thought didn't belong and humiliated her. In front of everyone, Daniel watched from the side, his arms crossed. The weight in the room had shifted again, this time not just toward justice, but toward reckoning. Guests began questioning aloud what this party, and maybe others like it, really stood for. Was it about connection, or just curated status? As murmurs swelled, Olivia's control slipped further. But before anyone could speak again, a loud chime echoed from the DJ booth. The screen behind the dance floor, meant to show party highlights, flickered, then unexpectedly lit up with raw footage from earlier that night, security cam footage of Olivia talking about Maria, laughing with others before the confrontation even happened. Planning it, the room went completely still. Gasps filled the room as the footage played in full view. The screen showed Olivia standing with two other women near the entrance before the party began. Her voice was clear. She's coming. Ava's cousin. I saw her once, completely plain. Definitely not party material. Let's keep things on brand, alright? If she shows up, handle it. Then they all laughed. It wasn't just gossip, it was deliberate. A plan to embarrass someone for not fitting their image. Maria felt the blood drain from her face. Not only had she been humiliated, but now she saw it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was intentional. Whispers broke into full-blown conversations. Some guests stepped away from Olivia entirely, others pulled out their phones, likely recording or messaging. Others, the polished image Olivia had carefully built for years, was crumbling in front of her. Piece by piece, Daniel stepped closer to Maria. You don't have to say anything, he said gently. You've already said enough just by standing here. But Maria shook her head slowly. Her hands trembled, but she stepped forward, voice soft but clear. I came here tonight to support someone I love. I didn't expect praise or attention. I didn't expect to be celebrated. But I also didn't expect cruelty. And definitely not this kind of performance. She paused. I don't care if I fit your theme. I care about being real. And if that's not enough, then maybe this party was never meant for people like me. There was silence until Ava clapped. Then Daniel. Then more guests joined in, one by one. Not for drama, not for show, but because something real had just happened in a place where everything had always been fake. Olivia turned pale. She tried to speak, but the words caught. This wasn't just a public embarrassment. It was exposure. Guests began leaving, conversations now centered on Maria's courage, not Olivia's brand. The room emptied slowly, but just as Maria turned to leave, a photographer approached her quietly. You may not know me, she said, but that was powerful. I run a feature column on authenticity in fashion and media. Would you consider sharing your story? Maria blinked, stunned. She came as an outsider, but maybe, just maybe, this was her beginning. Maria stood there for a moment, overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. What started as a painful, humiliating evening had turned into something unexpected, something powerful. She glanced at the woman with the camera, then at Ava, who gave her a small, proud nod. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like truth. Finally being seen, she gave a gentle smile. I'll think about it, she said to the photographer. I just need a little time. The woman nodded in understanding and stepped back, letting Maria have a moment to breathe. As the last of the guests left, Olivia sat down on the edge of the stage, her gaze distant. No one said anything to her. There was no public outrage, no shouting, just the quiet, undeniable weight of consequences. The video had spoken louder than any argument could. Her perfect world had cracked, not because of Maria, but because of the pressure she put on everyone to pretend. Outside the venue, the night air felt cooler, lighter. Daniel walked beside Maria, his hands in his pockets. "You were incredible back there," he said. "You didn't just speak, you changed something." Maria looked up at the stars. "I didn't plan to. I just got tired of feeling like I wasn't enough." She paused. "Turns out, I wasn't the only one," he smiled. "People needed to see it. Someone needed to say it out loud." Ava caught up to them and wrapped her arm around Maria's shoulder. "You reminded them what real beauty looks like," she said. "Not clothes, not filters, heart, strength." In the days that followed, the story spread not as a scandal, but as a conversation starter. Online posts praised Maria's courage. Blogs shared clips of her quiet speech. People began asking questions about image, inclusion, and the pressure to always fit in. The photographer published a piece called "The Woman They Call to Plain," and it went viral. Maria didn't chase fame. She didn't try to build a brand. She just kept being herself, simple, kind, honest. But now, people noticed her for all the right reasons, and somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was just the start of one she was finally writing on her own terms.